If you're in tune with the current state of TF2, you know the treatment of the art style is one of those contentious debates right now, more than it ever was before. One side arguing we should go back to the good old-fashioned color palette we relied on, and the other arguing that the increased wackiness of TF2 items is okay because the art style needs to evolve. With the centerpiece of this heated rivalry being the Emporium, a TF2 workshop group that has been put into question for what certain members have said and done, such as openly speaking poorly about both TF2's fans and art direction, intentionally creating maps or items to rile people up, and being a monopoly. There is no shortage of things people will criticize. However, today, I'd like to look at one of those common but least looked into criticism, which is the third one. Because for the past few months, I have been collecting a decade's worth of data that proves the Emporium's chokehold on TF2 is indeed real. And now, I'm about to show it to you. But before that, we have to establish some context for people who aren't that familiar. Specifically about what the workshop is, what the Emporium is, and how I collected all this data in the first place. Firstly, the workshop. As we all know, TF2 heavily relies on community-created content for updates, whether it be for clothes, war paints, maps, taunts, or unusual effects. The way Valve gets this content into the game is through the Steam Workshop, a place to submit the proper models so it can be imported into the game and creators can be compensated monetarily. That's right, this isn't some place to put your one-off projects or jokes. Its primary purpose is for getting a shot at putting your own creations into one of those legendary video games, unlike what some people will tell you.
After all, the workshop is just supposed to be a fun place for creative players to submit their fan creations with a small potential of it being added into the game.
Secondly, for the Emporium. Before it became the Discord community we know today, the Emporium was a group on FacePunch forums that was for creators to meet up and collaborate. After the shutdown of the FacePunch forums, the Emporium became a more closed-off Discord group, where most of the prominent figures in the TF2 workshop scene can be found, as well as resources to start creating new TF2 items. Something else to note is that the Emporium isn't a model with identical views and ideals, but in the context of this video, I'll be using the term as a catch-all word for significant members of this group that have their work promoted via the Emporium Twitter account. Finally, the data. This is a spreadsheet I made of every TF2 item and map added in every significant update from Love and War all the way to Smith's 2024. With a total of 1,147 items. I also put in every creator who made each item and a brief check of their association with the Emporium, whether they have joined the Steam group, are currently in the Discord, or have some other direct association. As for if an item is Emporium certified, I made a rule if the item was at least one quarter made by Emporium members, it would count, considering that was a reasonable amount that it wouldn't rule out stuff that obviously had some promotion tied to the Emporium, while also not immediately branding anything that had a slight amount of Emporium association as part of the problem. That being said, with how private Steam accounts work, there's bound to be a few blind spots, so keep that in mind. So, with that out of the way, does the Emporium truly have that much sway on what items? Yes, it's overwhelmingly Emporium territory when it comes to what gets added to the game. Let's just start with the more recent updates to show how big of an influence this group has. With the most recent update in this dataset, Smith's 2024 has 32 main additions, and only 2 of them are made by people not associated with the Emporium, those 2 being the map Overcast and the cosmetic Scrooge McDuck. But hey, that doesn't prove anything, as the update before that, Scream Fortress 2024, has only 34 out of 44 items coming from Emporium members, which is still 77%. As for the update before that, Summer Update 2024 also has only 2 non-Emporium made contributions, out of the 37 added that season. A big factor for this was the Tropic Crisis project, a workshop event that was heavily pushed by content creators in the TF2 sphere, and also had the Emporium heavily involved, which resulted in these 2 affronts to good taste being added to the game. So, 2024 was heavily Emporium dominated in terms of items being added to the game, but surely this is just an exception. How about 2023? Starting with Smith's, it's the same thing as before. 36 items added, 31 made by the Emporium members. Alright, Scream Fortress this time? Even worse. 43 out of 44. Okay, Maybe summer is better. Marginally yes, but meaningfully no, as 45 out of 55 items were Emporium contributed. We could go on, but I might as well show you the results here and now. It's been like this for 10 years now with varying degrees of severity. So now that I've done what the title says, it's time to go to the much more interesting part of looking at certain trends and anomalies. The first notable thing to cover is the extreme deviations, where certain updates have an unusual amount of non-Emporium content or are completely made by the Emporium. For the latest Emporium infested update, it's Meet Your Match, which only has 9 significant items, which only 3 of them are made by Emporium members. This is especially interesting since this is the only update in the last decade that not only is not majority Emporium made, but it's the only update to drop below 75% Emporium involvement. The closest update being Smith's 2020, which barely gets above this threshold. As for the other extreme and complete Emporium domination, there are 6 updates that fall under this category, those being Scream Fortress 2016, Blue Moon, Smith's 2018, Summer 2019, Smith's 2019, and Jungle Inferno. Once again, showing how dominant the Emporium is in the workshop sphere, with how there are more updates that are fully comprised of Emporium-made items than updates with a minority of Emporium items. As for trends, it's worthy to note that some fields of items are more or less Emporium-dominated than others. The best example of this are taunts, which has almost been completely dominated by the Emporium for a decade. The only taunt made by non-Emporium members or Valve being the Disco Fever. In other words, if you're an independent creator and are trying to get taunts into the game, you might want to put those foolish ambitions to rest. On the other hand, war paints are the best shot for independent creators, as the Emporium doesn't have quite as much of a chokehold on it. With the exception of Scream Fortress 2021 and Smith's 2019, there has been a greater mix of independent creations in Emporium war paints than any other category. For the final thing worth discussing, is the individual creators that end up dominating these updates. We'd be here forever if we covered every creator who's been dominant for a large update period, so we're sticking to the past 3 years. For maps, the most dominant current map makers are Wizard of Oz, Deep Verdan, Void, Fae, Stuffy 360, UEAK Crash, Freja, and E Arkham. For regular cosmetics, it's Neo Dement, Square, the Laser Sofa, and Greg, with a multitude of other creators that will cycle out each update. Finally for taunts, Kailu is all but guaranteed to get a taunt in the game each update. I missed a bunch of other super prominent creators, but these are the ones that will almost always get into the next update. And now, for the $1 million question. How much of TF2's community content since Love and War were comprised of Emporium contributions exactly? Well, out of the 1,150 items surveyed for the spreadsheet, 1,029 of them were Emporium created, meaning that since 2014, 89.6% of the items put into significant updates have had some sort of Emporium involvement. Meaning that not only is it true that the Emporium has had a soft monopoly on TF2 items, but also this monopoly has existed for a decade, perhaps even longer. So there you all have it. Definitive, easy to digest proof behind this bold claim that has been said for years. But before I go, I'd like to cover the very real negative consequences behind Monopoly existing. The first obviously bad thing about Monopoly existing is how it chokes out all the other competition. Rather than seeing each update have a bunch of uniquely talented individuals all contribute with different visions, we largely see the same types of people just going with what they already know works, or try to push how low quality they can make an item before Valve puts their foot down. That's another negative effect of Monopoly. They can end up setting a precedent of far worse quality. Remember how I said that Smith's 2018 was an exception to war paints being generally more diverse creator-wise? Well, that's the same update that introduced primarily more holiday-themed war paints rather than something closer to TF2's art style. And after that same update, tackier holiday-themed war paints were made, not only just by the same artists, but other smaller creators following in their footsteps. I'm especially worried about this, considering a paid taunt kill was added to the game in Valve's most recent update, which, was made by 3 Emporium members, which can result in more pay-to-win taunt kills being added to the game, which is just an awful monetization practice. And yes, I know, it's technically not pay to win, it's very situational, but you get the idea. It's just not a good precedent. Essentially, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you have an almost 90% market share of what gets added into the game, you need to make sure to submit only your highest quality items, without intruding on any of the game's core principles. That's one final thing to mention. Quality. If you're not challenged to make something better, you often stagnate. And that's like we can see in the current workshop scene. Creators that have made some of the most recognizable and well-received items in the past that continue to make items have seen a significant drop in quality in item creation, since they don't have to try as hard. That's the worst part. These people do have talent. They can make items that fit TF2, and there's plenty of new blood working hard to make the next iconic TF2 hat or wrap. But as long as this Monopoly continues to have an absolute grasp over TF2's updates, we won't see anything truly great. Overall, I hope this video can properly show the skill at how much TF2 updates are dominated by a single group, and can possibly encourage you to support smaller creators. The only way things are going to get better in the workshop scene is if we properly vote. So if you take a few minutes out of your day to properly promote some hidden gems instead of the same 15 or so creator, that would simply be fantastic. That being said, it's easier said than done, since the quantity over quality approach often means that the big Emporium creators show up a lot more than smaller ones. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.